All right. So my name is Valerie Grant, and I'm a geospatial scientist. That's what I do, and I'm a founder and managing director of a company, Geotech Vision, which provides spatial technology solution across the Caribbean, the US. We've touched the UK, Asia Pacific. So we are a small company with a big global footprint.
Mm. Good afternoon, Blessing. How are you? My name is Hajara Kabir. I'm a petroleum and gas engineer. I am a girl in STEM. I advocate for young girls to pursue a career in STEM. I am also an energy enthusiast.
Hi, my name is Julie Peña. I'm a petroleum engineer. I'm from Colombia, South America. I've been working in the industry for already, it's going to be like 13 years.
Wow.
I started studying in 2001 and got graduated in 2006. Actually finished my subjects in 2006. And then I went to do an internship with BP and end up my career in 2007. So it's been quite of a journey since then.
So I am Chisholm Obede. I just graduated. I finished my master's in chemical engineering at the University of Surrey. My interests so far have been more consumer goods, FMCG, but I also have a lot of interest in energy. And my final year dissertation was actually looking at upgrading bio oil so we can use it as more efficient biofuels. Previously, I've done sort of 1-year placement at Unilever, and I was one of the process engineers there in the global engineering team. As well as that, in sort of during my master's year, I was also part of the digital team, the digital factory team, because a lot of the work I was doing towards the end of my placement was also looking at digital and how we can implement digital skills and technology, upskill people, and really use that to our benefit. And so currently I am a process engineer in a factory making home care products. So think of Surf and Persil, things like that. And I'm the process improvement leader, and I'm just sort of working to improve the line.
Hi, my name's Heather. I work on the Hinkley Point C project for EDF. So we're building a new nuclear power station to provide energy for the future for the UK. And yeah, that's what I do. I lead a team of about 30 civil engineers and work alongside engineers of all sorts of other disciplines as we work towards building a nuclear power station. We're the biggest construction site in Europe. We've got the biggest crane in the world, which is called Big Carl. It's quite fun. It's really, really huge because we've got to lift some really big things on the construction site into place. So yeah, it's really exciting project.
Okay. So I was introduced, I think, growing up in the countryside, nature becomes your playground. And so I was always on the outside. I was always doing things. And so that piqued my curiosity. So I wanted to understand more about where things came from, how curiosity that led me to want to do more in terms of geography. And then in doing geography and doing all of the sciences, the chemistry, the physics, all of those things. Plus, my older sister was already a science student. So I would hear her talk about things. So that also piqued my curiosity. I also had a dad who was an electrician, and him being an electrician, then I'm talking about things like diodes and transistors and other things with my brothers. And very early, I could start to make an estimate if he was doing wiring of a house, that kind of thing. So I was exposed to it, I think, through family, through nature, just through where I grew up. And that was at a very early age. I was younger than 10 when all of this was happening. So, at the age of 6, I was running around. I was asking questions. I was one of those child who used to ask why about everything. At least that's what I've been told by everybody else these days. And so they always thought that I just had a natural curiosity for these kind of things. And so that developed into me wanting to pursue geology. So that's what I studied in university. I studied geology, so I'm a geologist. But I'm not a practicing geologist. And I really got into my area, geospatial sciences, purely by accident. So I did one course in geographic information systems when I was in university, and I hated it. I literally hated it. And my professor, a professor of mine, Edward Robinson, he said to me, you cannot be a geologist without some kind of computerized mapping. And so, be the person that I am, and I took advice, I decided that, okay, I'm going to do this one course, but that's going to be it. And clearly it was not it, because I ended up doing some summer internships that involved GIS. And then I went for another summer job. That's the year between doing undergraduate and wanting to go pursue my master's in hydrogeology. And that was really what changed my life. At the point in time, I thought it was just going to be a summer job. But the person responsible for the company had an environmental project, asked me how I would approach it. It was right up my street, and I understood the theory of it, but clearly didn't want to go that way. And so I found every excuse as to why I couldn't do it. And in finding all of those excuses, he still offered me the job. And I was like, you know what? If I don't like it, I'll just quit come September. And I was thrown into the deep end. I was just thrown into a lot of things. I started to do serious analysis. And every time I would ask him for some explanation, for some guidance, he did give the guidance, but he gave it in the form of books. And he would refer me to a book, an article. And so I was just getting deeper and deeper into it. And before long, I was saying that I was going to do a master's in geographic information systems and environment. And so that's what I did.
Okay, I think I would trace back my STEM journey to when I was around 15 to 14 years. I was in high school then. And I could remember during a career talk, usually the school organizes this career fairs from time to time, almost every semester. So whenever they come, they talk about STEM, with little understanding of what it meant, actually. I knew it was science, technology, engineering, and maths, and they were always telling us about how they're trying to get more girls to come into STEM and all. And so I remember one time there was this lady, two of them, a lady and a man came for the career fair, and they were actually talking to us about the possible careers that we could take up in STEM. And they were talking about, astronauts, like a lot of STEM careers, and I was really fascinated. So when I was in my final year in high school, and it was time for us to write the JAM that we write here in Nigeria to get into the university, I remembered almost everyone in my set actually applying to medicine. Wow. I also wanted to feel among, because all your friends actually are going for that. Why wouldn't I go? So I also applied for that in my JAM, but deep inside me, I knew that there was something wrong. That wasn't my calling. I was just, trying to go with the flow and all. So towards the end, I think during my WAEC, when I was writing WAEC, I decided to start checking for engineering courses. And I remember coming across biometric engineering and petroleum engineering. Sorry, biomedical engineering and petroleum engineering. And I was, researching into it. And then before you know it, I just started developing interest for petroleum engineering. And I also remember when we were asked to fill in our school magazine, I decided to be different then and, stand out of the crowd. And I wrote petroleum and gas engineer then. And I think that was the whole introduction that I had to STEM. And thanks to that lady, I can't really remember her name, but she was really an...
I was like 18 years old, and I didn't have a clue about petroleum engineering. I didn't knew that career exists at all. I want to study electrical engineering. So I present myself to the to a public university, and but I couldn't make it in the first attempt. So I have to go back to study. In Colombia, you have to present like an exam when you finish all your school. and like they give you some grade, and with this grade you are able to present to the universities. When you are going to present to a public university, basically they take this grade into account. So someone told me, like, you know what, try to find a career that has a lower grade than the one that you want to study, and then you change. So I did that. I start looking for the engineerings that has the lower grade, and I found petroleum engineering. So I was like, okay, I'm going to present this one, and then I will change. That was my initial idea. Then I started studying, and this is a 5-year career, so it's 10 semesters. So the first 5, it will be basically the same subjects for all the engineerings. So I started studying. I wasn't quite sure about changing, so I just keep going semester after semester, and then I get to the 5th. So I need to change right there, or I wouldn't change. So I was like, okay, I'm going to change, but then that semester I will have to see the first subject related to petroleum engineering. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take this class and to see what is all this about I've been studying, because I really don't know what is this about. So I decided to take the class. I took it, and I was like, okay, this is not that bad. I mean, it's a great career, has really nice stuff, so I'm going to stay. So I decided to keep studying petroleum engineering. And then I have this friend, he already passed away, but it was a really dear friend of mine, and he was like, take a time, think about it. I can help you out if you needed to find a job. Don't worry, everything will be fine. This is price. This is pretty common in here, so don't worry. And he pretty much convinced me of not changing my career. So I ended up studying petroleum engineering because of that.
I would say even from a young age, I was always more, I'd say, interested in and aligned with, maths, science, chemistry, physics, and all of that, as opposed to the humanities. I'd say I always just clicked, there's things that you just understand things and pick things up. Some things easier than others. So I always really liked maths, which is really, unpopular opinion because most people are afraid of it, but I found it logical. And I like that if you apply the logic, you can often arrive at a relatively decent answer or conclusion. And I also really liked sciences as well. I found that they really helped me understand the world. And I have a very inquisitive mind, so I always want to know how things work, how things function. And I found that putting these two together, you can help understand how things work in the world. So it got to, I'd say, about A-levels. I didn't really know what I wanted to do then, but I knew I wanted to do, maths and something applied science, basically. So for A-levels, I took maths, physics, chemistry, and biology, which seems like a whole load, but I actually really enjoyed it. And then it got to the end of A-levels, and I would say because of what I was studying, my family pushed me more towards medicine, but it was something that I didn't in my heart know that I wanted to do. So I had a search around, and my university, my sixth form career service was actually really good in that they got a load of people to sort of come in and talk about their roles and their jobs, and what they did and how they got there. And so a process engineer actually came into my sixth form, and I think he worked at Exxon or Shell, I can't remember, but he just talked about what he did, and it just honestly blew my mind, because until then I'd never been introduced to chemical engineering as a career. I didn't really know what it was, and I was sparked by the fact that he was using the science and the theory he'd learned in real world applications, and solving problems, and that's something that ultimately really interested me, and drew me to chemical engineering. Aside from oil and gas, he also touched on a lot of the other sort of industries that you can work in, and to see chemical engineering just being applied everywhere, whether it's energy, water treatment, food, consumer goods, oil and gas, like everywhere, that that sort of breadth of knowledge that you would gain from one degree is really what drew me to chemical engineering. And so that's how I ended up studying chemical engineering. And I can say I wasn't and I've really enjoyed it so far.
So I absolutely loved physics and mechanical kind of maths at school. My physics teacher was particularly brilliant. He never gave us the answers to any questions, which at first used to frustrate me because I'd be like, I want to know how this works. But by not giving us the answers, he used to make us kind of go and explore for ourselves and find out, try and understand. And I think from very early on, that was kind of at secondary school, I guess, that was a really good way to introduce me to the topic and to get you thinking for yourself, really. And so that was, I did physics for A-level, really enjoyed it. After that, I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do at university. And I don't know if you've heard of them, but you can do some surveys where you put in all this random stuff about yourself and it squirts out an answer. And mine squirted out the answer that said, oh, you should become a mechanical engineer. At the time, unfortunately, what I thought was an engineer was the guy who comes around to fix the washing machine. Didn't really think that was what I wanted to do for my life, fix washing machines. Unfortunately, that was the closest I really had to understanding what a STEM career or any sort of STEM opportunities could be. And so I kind of rejected that. I was like, don't know what that means. I'll just go and I'll become a doctor or something because that uses my science. I grew up in an area where they didn't have much industry around, and I didn't have any role models really. There wasn't any like family or friends who I would have known were engineers or were in engineering or were even in a STEM career particularly. So that was a bit hard. But I didn't get good enough A-level results to go to medicine, so I found this thing called medical physics. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll go and do that. So combining what I thought was sort of medicine and physics, didn't really know what I was going to do. But yeah, really enjoyed studying physics at university, lots of different topics, and particularly like the medical physics side, which is all about how we look after people in hospitals for medicine. It touches on things like audiology or biomedics you can go into. So I actually went into a topic after that called radiation protection. And that's where I started working in the nuclear industry, because it was using that physics but applying it to real life situations of keeping people safe, keeping the people who worked on the power station safe, keeping the public safe, and sort of using that physics and atoms and understanding about how things work to apply to a real life situation where I could work with real people on a real power station. So yeah, that was a nutshell.
Interesting. Well, I think the best way for me, how I do it is through early stage exposure, through constant encouragement, and also trying to make parents, teachers, and guardians aware that the STEM courses are interesting and very nice courses for girls to actually pursue. And it's very rewarding, it's successful. I just try to make them understand that, okay, the future is STEM. In what sense? Because if you look around, everything that we do, like everything that we have in this world right now, is as a result of the inputs of the people in STEM and the technologies, the science and everything. And I would ask them that, doesn't that fascinate you? Don't you want to see your child, being part of this change, being a game changer? And so on. So mostly these are the kind of things that we do. But I would say again that for you to be able to harness the interest of STEM in children, you have to start it at a very early stage. For me now that I go to schools, I try to advocate for them. I try to bring myself down to their level, carry on some science experiments and so on. So it makes them to really start developing interest in one or two of these STEM courses. And before you know it, you begin to introduce different STEM careers to them and let them figure out what they want on their own.
One of the things that we've been doing is that we've been focusing a lot on our EdTech vertical of the company. So not only are we are a true technological company now. We started out as being geospatial. In 2014, we integrated our education technologies vertical the company. And that is something that has been near and dear for me. Even before we had that vertical, all of our corporate social responsibility focused on youths and education. So it is something that is kind of in the DNA and culture of the organization. And so last year we launched something called a digital citizenship program. We have launched EduTech Aid Initiative. And that initiative, I'm happy to say, has turned into EduTech Aid, a foundation. And that foundation is geared at a ministry that dictates basically providing solutions, technology solutions to aid STEM. Important that those of us who are in the STEM field, that we be good role models and we also be mentors. I think mentorship is very critical, and we find creative ways to expose them to it. It's not going to take a lecture, but it's going to take doing something that is creative. One of the things that we have done is that we have been having little camps, and last year we had a Fly Like a Girl. The sky's the limit. It was a drone camp, and we were teaching young girls how they could fly drones and how they could collect data and how they could process that data and how they could use that data to make meaning, to analyze and to even have impact on their little communities. So I think if we find meaningful ways to get them engaged, things that they love, expose them to robotics, expose them to things on the outdoors. It's not about just being a bookworm. It's about helping them to see that in their own backyards, there are things that they could be exploring. As you say, it's about making sure that they satisfy that curiosity and they start asking the right questions, because more than the answers, I believe that asking the right questions are so critical. And when you expose persons to something, then you start getting those questions being asked. And so that becomes so important. So I think those are some of the things that I would say. I also believe that just show and tell, that's important. So have them over to the office, have them see what's possible, have them fly a drone, have them play with the computer, have them do some kind of a study tour. These are all things, practical ways in which you could do it. I believe in camps. I believe in making sure that we can show them. It's not about talking about it. It's not saying that we can do STEM. It's getting them in that environment so that they can experience it. And once they experience it, usually they want a little more.
I think that's a really good question. And I don't know if you know about the EDF Pretty Curious campaign, but I really think one of the really key things is about curiosity and not letting young people or girls particularly being allowed to put away or throw away their curiosity. We really need to encourage that. If they say, how does it work? We need to say, okay, let's have a look at that. Why don't we take it apart? Why don't we try and understand it, rather than saying, oh, you don't need to know about that, or you don't need to understand that, or worse, giving them the solution and the answer before they've had to develop it. So yeah, I think really enhancing curiosity and helping young people to be curious. And then I think the other thing is exactly what you're doing. It's about finding role models and finding opportunities for young people to engage with role models, because if they can't see themselves reflected in the future, then they won't think there is a future there. So, yeah, I think what you're doing is great.
Good. Thank you so much. Did you say EDF? There was something you said about there's a program you've got at EDF.
Yeah, so we've just had a campaign called Pretty Curious.
Pretty Curious. Okay.
It's kind of a few. There's a few adverts have appeared in cinemas and things, just about encouraging girls to be curious, and the idea that you can be pretty curious. You don't have to just be pretty. You can be pretty curious, or pretty excited, or pretty interested. So yeah, it's worth having a look into.
Outreach is a good one, because I think if you don't see yourself in certain positions, some people automatically just think, oh well, that's not for me, I can't do that. If you look at organizational structures, there's no women there, so why I want to go into that workspace when it's not built for me. That's automatically what a lot of young girls think. So I think representation and outreach can go a very long way into doing that, going into sixth forms, going into secondary schools, going into primary schools even, just really changing perceptions and notions on what men and women can do. That way, even when you're 10 years old, you can be like, yeah, I like maths. Maths is good. Not, oh, I don't like maths. It's so hard. I think also showing people the application of the skills is a really good thing, rather than, oh, maths is super hard, so you can't do it. It's, I just made this thing. It's amazing, and here's what I used to make it. That way, you're not focusing on just, learning the theory. You're also focusing on the application. You're like, I want to be able to do something like that one day. And to do that, to aspire to something like that, I need to learn.
Nah, I don't think you ever really arrive. I'm still on a journey, and it's been an exciting journey so far. I worked as an independent consultant for a couple of years. I still worked with governments. I picked up contracts here and there, that kind of thing. And then in 2008, I decided that I wanted to start a company. I didn't just want to be an independent consultant. I was doing some form of entrepreneurship by being that, but I was a solo entrepreneur. I wanted to take the next step. And so in 2008, I started Geotech Vision, and Geotech Vision has really grown into what I hoped it would be, a company that delivers impactful solutions to the clientele that we serve. And so I have chosen that road, and it continues to be a very interesting journey. I'm learning things every day, and we pivot. COVID has given us another chapter in that journey. So with the advent of COVID-19, it's how to continue to motivate my team. It's how do we pivot? It's how do we remain relevant? And how do we continue to make a big impact in the community that we serve?
I hope there is more for me. So at this point, I will say that I would like to, I'm in a point where I will change how I see my career. Like if you were asked me like a year ago, I will tell you, I want more, and I want to get to that top technical part of my company. But right now I'm in that transition that I didn't see was possible before, and now I've been having this opportunity to explore this new side, and it has been really important to me.
So I'm really lucky working for EDF Energy. There's lots of projects that always happen. There's lots of things to go and do. I've done 10 years working on an actual power station, and now I'm helping to build one. In the future, the possibilities are huge. I could go and work in renewables. I could go and work more on the customer side, or I could go and do another project similar, or I could go and work on a power station. So I think I've got like a lot of opportunities, and sometimes those choices in the future might be made by where I want to be in the country, or what kind of role I want to do. But what I know for sure is that I really enjoy the challenge of new jobs, and challenges of maybe not always technical challenges, but sometimes organizational challenges, like how we manage change and how people work. So lots of new areas that I'm interested to explore in the future.
Next 5 years. I am very interested and passionate about getting chartered. I think that recognition and that formal accreditation is sort of the logical next step in my career as an engineer. So I am currently looking to develop myself and taking on roles and projects that would help me develop in that space, so I can be a chartered engineer within the next sort of 5 years. I think it's a good time frame to put it. In terms of how the industry is going, I'd say a lot more digital and tech is coming into it a lot. And I also see myself working in that space. I sort of touched on it on my placement year, and again, blew my mind. I didn't know it could be applied in the ways that it's been applied. And so that's something that I'm definitely would probably go into in the next 5 years. I think it'd be a lot bigger then.